Most companies think hiring is about filling roles, but when it's done well, it's one of the biggest levers for growth, culture, and long term performance. Today's guest helps founders and leadership teams get hiring done right. I'm Sim Payne Powell, fractional HR director, chartered MCIPD, and over the last 25 years, I've worked in senior HR globally across 16 countries, partnering with founders and leadership and supporting employees to build workplaces that they actually love. I'm here to challenge bad HR, the kind of HR that protects systems instead of people, and gives my profession a bad name. Today's guest is Chernee Vitello. She's a senior global recruiting leader and the founder and president of the Whiting Company, with over 20 years' experience in executive search and talent acquisition. She works closely with founders and C suite teams, designing clear strategic hiring processes, bringing strong leadership, and scaling organizations without losing that human touch in recruitment. Chernee, I'm so happy to have you on. It's taken us a while to get this session. I'm
We-
excited to have it. I've got so many questions for you today. I hope we'll get through all of them in our session. But I wanted to start with your background, your story, what pulled you into recruiting, and what eventually wanted to make you start writing consulting.
Sure. So, my background is I went to college for marketing. And when I was out of college, I found this job as a recruiter, and I didn't know what a recruiter really did. So I kind of fell into recruiting kind of haphazardly. But one of my mentors, when I was thinking about taking the job, said, you got to think about recruiting as marketing. You're marketing jobs to people. And that really resonated with me throughout my whole career. So I started
Mm,
in house working on the agency side. And then when I had my second child, I was um, asked to start a recruiting company
oh,
and helping organizations find talent. And I decided to take that opportunity. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a little girl. And so why I wanted to do Whiting Consulting is that I wanted to help people find the right home. And I really believe that's what recruiters do. I don't
yeah,
look at it as a transaction. I look at it as a journey and helping people develop their careers and finding the right homes for them throughout those careers. I
I
also
was like,
saw that there was a need for a partnership, a opportunity to really understand what the company does and matching that to the right talent, because people can be successful at many different companies but not always the company is a match for them. And so
mm,
really what I want to do is align what that company is looking for and what that candidate is looking for and find a good home for both. And that's really what Whiting Consulting is about.
I love that because like you're building psychological safety for people when
Correct.
they're choosing those roles and finding them the right places at the right time. So you've described recruiting as a company's second sales function, and I wanted to understand what you meant by that.
So if you think about it, besides your direct sales people in the workforce, what is the other entity within an organization that is really out in the market talking to people? And that is your recruiting organization.
Mm,
And that could be a potential client that they're talking to or a potential candidate down the road. But what I see within organizations is they do not properly arm the recruiting organization to have those in-depth conversations. They think of it as transactional. Just
yeah,
give them the job spec, give them a little bit of like selling points on a company. They're not training them to really understand what they do, what their mission is, what their value props are, what their leadership goals are, really understanding the product. 7 years ago, I went in house and I developed a recruiting function globally for an ad tech company.
mhm,
In that area, I partnered successfully with the business partners to really understand what they did.
yeah,
So, my recruiters really understood the product and how to position. So when you had that initial conversation with a candidate, you could go more in depth and really understand what they did to make sure the match was there more earlier on in the process,
got
as
you.
well as be able to educate them on what the products do and make that impact more impressive. Because what you have to do and realize is the candidate is evaluating you as much as you are evaluating them. And when you have that proper knowledge of what the company does and be able to sell it correctly, you're
Yeah,
going to be able to influence that candidate, that top talent that you want to acquire faster and build that
mhm,
faster if you have the proper knowledge. what I hear from candidates when I talk to them now that I'm back at Whiting Consulting is that companies that they're talking to, these first line recruiters, they're just getting basic information. They
Right.
wish they could bypass that conversation.
Got you.
Pause them.
I loved that answer because that's exactly how we met. Like, you found me a new home in a business that suited me at that time before I decided that I wanted to step out and become a founder or entrepreneur myself. So, and I think that in within that process, like, you explained and broke down a lot about the company, how the setup was, the key players. Like, you spoke to my interests, which was diversity and inclusion, being part of a team that was growing, being able to continue to grow and learn and gain experience, and all of that made me safe and secure. And this was during COVID, right? So, like, that's a scary time to be thinking about making a move to a different job, because there were so many people like cutting roles and losing jobs. So to be able to feel comfortable enough to make that transition during COVID, you done an amazing job in, like, basically explaining who the company was and why I needed to work for them and what it was going to do for me.
Well, I think
So
at the beginning of your this conversation is that
yeah,
recruiting and HR sometimes have a very negative connotation for people because of bad experiences. And part of
always.
my job, first part of a conversation when I'm talking to candidates sometimes is kind of removing that anxiety or that misrepresentation they have of what a true recruiter does. And
Hmm.
a good recruiter really listens to not only their client but also the candidate that they're representing, so they really understand what they want and to make that alignment.
Yeah.
And so I don't think recruiters in a lot of organizations today are taking that time, maybe because they think it's a employer market, or they just haven't had that proper training to really sit down and listen and build that trust. Because if you have that trust along the way, you're going to
Mm.
be able to help influence that person to make that decision. Or I've had also um, getting to a point in a conversation with someone where I'm saying, you know what, this isn't the right opportunity for you because
Yeah.
you said you want to do XYZ. We're going to go the other way because you want to do XYZ, and the match isn't going to be there, but it could be down the road where a better match is. So
Hmm.
that building that trust is so important, and listening.
I think it's really, really hard as well because right now, like, recruiters can have up to 20 roles each. And then how the market is with everybody being out of work, you're going to get hundreds upon hundreds of CVs and stuff that are coming through, which also adds a layer of complexity and being able to, like, filter through that and make the connections. But you have to try, like, the key candidates that you want, you have to make that conversation. You have to explain. You can't rush that bit, because if they're a key candidate, and you really want them, you got to take the time to, as you said, make that sale, make them understand. And it goes back to another guest that I've had on, Kylie, with the employer branding. It leads into that. Like, you are the employer's brand at that point,
Yeah,
and you cannot rush that conversation, and you can't skip things, because then you are not giving a clear and consistent view of your brand, you
correct.
know?
And I've been a little controversial about the abundance of recruiters saying there's too many candidates. There are too
Yeah.
many candidates, but you're not changing your approach. So I'm actually a really big fan of not posting all your roles. I know that's controversial, but
Hmm.
it doesn't give you the right candidate experience if you're posting these roles and not acknowledging the candidate pool that you're acquiring because you made that post. You have to
Yeah.
really think strategically about what positions you're going to post for and why, versus creating all this noise. The companies are creating the noise, it's not the
Mm.
candidate. Candidates are
Yeah.
reacting to that noise.
That's
So
it.
companies need to change their philosophy. It just seems like they're doing the same thing over and over again versus
Yeah.
thinking strategically about each role.
And that totally makes sense, because there's been times where, like, back in the day, where I was maybe job hunting and I was looking around, and I would see one role and it will be posted on maybe LinkedIn or somewhere else. And maybe it wasn't the right role for me, but it piqued my interest. So I'd go to the website and I'd go under their careers page, and then I would see everything else that they had. And there might be something that's suitable and there might not be. But what it's done, it's driven me to take that look anyway. You
Yeah,
know, if you've done the ad right and you've got that employer branding right and the sales technique is right, people are still going to come to your webpage and check it out and have a look.
correct.
So yeah, it makes sense. I fully get it. So like if sales is about convincing customers to believe in your company and recruiting is about convincing great people to believe in it, where do people get that kind of second sale, that recruitment sale, employer branding bit wrong?
I think where organizations are failing today is they really think HR is transactional. They don't take it as a strategic partner and a
Mhm.
visionary within their company. They're just thinking, okay, I'm going to give you a job description. Here are some four, 5 bullet points. Go out and find someone. They don't understand all the pre work that needs to happen before that starts, or even the
Mhm.
process after you get the opportunity. So I think it's really comes down to really understanding that today is even though it's still an employer's market,
Mhm.
find that right candidate that you're looking for, it is still a very passive market for most of those top talent opportunities.
Yeah.
And that you really need to partner with recruiting. Recruiting needs to be an advisor to your organization. You need to
Yeah.
be open to that because one thing in recruiting that I've noticed, whether I'm a consultant or in-house, is that everyone thinks they know how to recruit. They think that's one thing within the company that they know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, done it, whatever. But it really
Yeah.
is art form to get a person in the door successfully and to get them to stay. One of
Mhm.
one of the things I'm most proud of about Whiting Consulting is that because of the process that we do, most of our candidates, I would say 98% of our candidates stay at an opportunity for more than 2+ years. The industry average
Amazing.
is about a year and a half. It's because
Mhm.
we're making that alignment up front. So I think that's what companies are missing is that alignment and clarity
Yeah.
and valuing their recruiting organization as true partners and leaders versus a more transactional organization.
Got you. So partnership with leadership is a big part of Whiting's approach.
Correct.
Like, why can't strategic recruiting happen in isolation from the leadership team? Why do you need the leadership team involved?
Because so many things about the leadership team influences your recruiting process. So,
Mhm.
um, let's talk about the last company that I was a part of. A big sale for me to candidates was the leadership team of this organization. And if
Yeah.
I didn't partner with them and understand from the CEO down what their philosophies were, their values were, the way that they did processes, the way that they look for people to work with them, I would have not been able to hire the strategic team they needed to execute the rapid growth they're in now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that I hired 2 years ago are really key members now as that company is taking off. So I was helping
Mhm.
them to see down the road of where the candidates were and try to hire ahead.
Yeah.
But really, if I didn't understand who the CEO was, who the VP of product was, who the CTO was, and not be able to use that, I wouldn't have been able to attract the people I am.
Mhm.
CEOs are a huge sell. I had this great CEO. She was a woman founder of a very, very successful brand within the STEM movement. Her
Mhm.
whole philosophy was why people wanted to work for that company. And I was able to articulate and sell that appropriately.
So when a founder or a CEO says, like, I need to hire somebody great, um, how do you actually uncover what they need? Because you and I both know you get this ambiguous ask. You got to take it from like here and then like drag it down to like the core of what is needed. How do you actually get that information from people to understand what the person that they actually want and need?
I think that's one of the biggest issues out there today is that people do not know how to clarify exactly what they're looking for. And
Yeah.
clarity is a big piece of a success to a good recruiting process because if you
Mm.
don't have clarity and you don't have understanding, you can throw anyone at anyone and it not work out, even if you think
Yeah.
it's the perfect candidate. So it's really that curiosity and being able to ask the right questions of
Mhm.
that leader to figure out why or what they're looking for. So say they're looking for a VP of sales. Uh,
Mhm.
I would start out with asking, like, how long has that position been available? Why did that person leave? Is this a new position within the organization? You just drill down a lot of different questions to you
Yeah.
get to the point where you are figuring out what are they looking for that person to actually do? What does
Hmm.
success look like for that position? And
Yeah.
then once you understand what success looks like and what outcomes are, then you work backwards to figure out what does that person have to do in order to be successful.
Got
And
you.
then you list out like the responsibilities and skills. It's really what that person is going to do and accomplish what you're looking for versus the skills. The skills come back later in that conversation. And
Hmm.
then it is meeting with that person after you figure out really what they're looking for. Take that and figure out a strategy to help them find that person, understand the market, understand what compensation looks like, be that advocate back to that and consultant back to that leader of like, this is where this candidate lives. For example, I had a client wanting to open up ML, machine learning
Yeah.
organization in Germany. There wasn't a lot of machine learning people in Germany to fit what we're looking for. However, that's
Hmm.
where they wanted to go. So you need to educate them that that's really maybe not where the people that you're looking
At
for
that
live.
point in time. Hmm.
It's really going back to them and constantly showing them, "This is what you say you're looking for. Is this what you're looking for?"
Yeah.
And help them continue to build clarity through that process to like, "Yes, that's exactly what I want." If you don't do that, you're gonna be spending weeks or months on a search, particularly a high level search, before you might show him or her the information, and it's the wrong information. So that's why partnership is so important with us at Whiting. It's constantly working with them and bringing them into that recruiting process
Yeah.
because they're just as important in that recruiting process as the recruiter.
That's it. And I tell you what, like, you said partnership just now, and it's the biggest thing. This is HR partnership, business partnership. We're called HR business partners for a reason. And a lot of organizations do not implement that same partnership across the talent and recruiting teams. There needs to be that partnership because your recruiters can't be strategic if they don't understand what you're trying to do with the business. They
I think
like
there's
if you don't have those clarity conversations
yep.
or invite them into headcount meetings or certain things, they won't have the clarity. And that's why your clarifying questions are so important because a lot of times talent is not at the table where it needs to be. HR in general and is not at the table when it needs to be there to truly partner with the business, you know?
I think that's so true because I think you and I partnered so well. And
Yeah.
if you look at our stats compared to other groups within the organizations that maybe were worked with other HR
Mm.
partners, we had better stats because you and I partnered so well with our leaders and to
Yep.
get the hiring done on that side. Whereas
Mhm.
where other folks within the organization that maybe didn't see the value initially, you
Yeah,
could see where the friction happened or the numbers were slower, the time to fill was slower because they weren't bringing talent in at the right moment. So it's
exactly
really
that.
making sure senior leadership across the board, not leader to leader, because I've been in organizations where it's been like that, so have you, but it's really across the board, the value that talent brings and why you have to have that buy-in across the board, not leader by leader.
There you go. So, like, how do you end up identifying like-minded, value-aligned people without hiring people that all think the same way? I'm very big on inclusion. I talk about it a lot, and I've tried to get businesses to diversify because diversity creates innovation. So
Mhm.
how do you make sure that you're not literally picking up and replicating the same person over and over again in the business?
I mean, I
I
think
like
it's
that's a curveball.
but
Mm,
it's really looking at the company's values, right?
yeah.
So and, like, leadership styles, and making sure that the company knows what their values are, articulate that part of their employee brand, as well as what their leadership traits are. And
Mhm.
so you can go out and find like-minded people that align with those traits no matter what their background may be. So I'm a big believer about a person's experience, not what a person's like education background is, for example. So I think that's one way that we go about hiring is looking at what the person actually has done and where they have come from and what their experiences are versus maybe their education, because you don't want everyone from an Ivy League school with that kind of persona. You want to diversify that train of thought. Or hiring from small companies that are very niche and looking at what they've accomplished and know that you can bring that kind of scrappiness, diversification into a larger, more successful organization. Then you get more diverse of thought, more
Yeah.
scrappiness that they might be looking for during those innovative times versus going after another person from maybe a like-minded company, like say you're going from Google to um, Amazon, for example. Well, you're going to kind
Mhm.
of have the same individual. You maybe need more of a scrappiness person that comes from a
Yeah.
startup in there to interject some of that spark and excitement. As long as they have those like-minded values or
Mm.
leadership traits, you're going to be able to hire the right person.
Got you.
And that's why it's so important to have that human touch within hiring today,
Yeah.
because AI is not going to see that.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of AI. I'm a believer that there's value to AI in any process. But when it comes to recruiting, there is so much subjectiveness to the process and to what you're looking for that you need that human to go out and find and look at people's idiosyncrasies and those
Mhm.
uniquenesses, because those uniquenesses are what's going to set you apart versus the blanketness I think AI is creating from a search perspective.
I completely and fully align with you on that. It's quite scary, and then you have to think about all of the legislation that's now coming in place. You've got the EU AI Act that's now kicking in, and like people need to be aware of that and understand that you can be held accountable for a decision from AI,
Yep.
like a recruiting decision, a standard, anything like that. So you do need to have those human checkpoints in your process to make sure that you are being fair, that you are looking at the right thing. I've had people reach out to me. I've got another recruiter friend, and she has somebody. She said one of the people that she's mentoring applied for a job. Say like they applied at midday, they got
Mhm.
the decline at like 12:03,
Yeah.
like, they couldn't understand what they had been declined on, like, how the decision had been made. They were somebody that was, like, a senior in this market, in this sector, wherever else, and they were still declined, and they couldn't understand why. And that's the hard thing, like the decision making process that's been set up within some of these systems. It needs somebody to sanity check it and make sure that the decision is
Agreed.
right before those declines actually go out to potential candidates that could make an amazing change or addition to your business, you know?
And I don't think organizations are thinking about that. I think
Yeah.
that they're overwhelmed. They're not looking at
Mhm.
the process correctly. They
Yeah.
just want to heat it and get it out the door. There's so much pressure. They have to be lean. I understand all that. And where
Mhm.
AI help is with the automation to offset so recruiters can be spending the right
Yeah.
places at the right time.
Yeah.
However, I think that they really need to look at how people are going to feel. So when I first started recruiting in the 90s, it
Mhm.
was kids that had grown up with the first type of downsizing that happened in the 80s. And
Mhm.
candidates were really trepidatious to join a company because they were really worried about stability because they saw what happened to their parents. And I
Yeah.
don't think companies today realize that how they're treating individuals when the market does turn and they're going to have to go after these people again, how
Mm.
they're treated is really gonna be remembered and reflective even more, and they're gonna have a harder time filling these roles than they think. They're
That's it.
forgetting about the human and how humans feel, and I think people need to think about how would they feel? Going back to that golden rule, I'm gonna write a post about this next week, how
Yeah.
important it is when someone reaches out to you just to say hi. You might not have time, but acknowledge them, and people are just not acknowledging anyone, which is not the
Yeah.
right strategy.
It's not the right strategy at all, no. So, like, if we think about that and like how businesses are handling it, and we've spoken about recruiting and the talent teams being like a second sales team, it links to our employer branding. What do you think separates a recruiter that just fills roles from a like a true talent partner who's working strategically to make the business like a better place?
I think the latter is what's gonna succeed and who's gonna last. A person
Mhm.
that's just in a transactional mindset is not gonna be able to adapt to the way the world is going. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I wanna fight AI, I have to adapt and figure out how to learn it because
Mhm.
companies are just on that bandwagon right now. I might be the
Mhm.
small percentage that think it's gonna be a bust, and they're gonna realize that they wasted all this time and money because everyone likes to show that little shiny thing out there, and I love that. I love things to make my life easier because when
Yeah.
you're there's a lot of administrative.
Yeah.
I was working on a search where I had to write the word Prometheus. It was a technology, and, oh my god,
Oh
I had to look
gosh.
each time, and it was like just typing up my notes. Now that there's tools to help me type up my notes and do those things I could do so quickly, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Or
Yeah.
help with calendaring, amazing. But to go out or to do research, that's amazing to get that information quicker, so you're more armed to have those conversations.
Yeah.
But to look at a person's background and be able to make that evaluation, you're just going back to very simple keywords that you're gonna pass by so much great talent, and
Mm.
that's what a true partner is going to realize and teach their business partners,
Mhm.
that it might take a couple days longer to find the right person, but I'm gonna find you the right person versus someone that is gonna come in and kinda think they know what they're doing, and then you're gonna have to replace them 3 months, 6 months down the road.
I
That's
know.
gonna be a huge cost to the business.
No, that truly makes sense. So, like, I fully get that because you want to take the time, you want to have the time, and yes, there is a place for AI, but being able to like speak to that person and them fill in the gap in my CV is because I had a parent that was sick, dementia or something, because
Yeah,
it happens and I was caring for them. This is why I was working part-time hours, or this is why I took the career break I did for like 18 months, you know? I lost my parent at the end of it, like, but now I'm back. And what I've been seeing is like the AI filters for that gap without actually having the context. Whereas in a good recruiter would look at this person and go, their experience is amazing. Like they've got a gap though. I need to understand what
ex
happened.
mhm.
Because you can then speak to that gap and say to people like, they kept up with their skills when they were off because they were bored at home. Like they were looking after somebody, but they still were training. They were still doing the things like run them through the tests. They'll be perfect. They can still do it, you know?
Exactly.
So we,
Or
we do need
look
that.
that has huge experience and you want that big company name, but there's a startup that did maybe not to the huge mass amount of big data or something like that,
Mhm,
but have
mhm.
done all the steps to launch. And
Yeah.
if you take a little bit of that risk because of their maybe ambition or their more alignment to the values or could handle the personality traits of the leaders within an organization, because that's another big thing. The personality traits, are people going to be able to come in and handle those to make sure that
Mhm.
successful? You're not going to be able to see that through AI.
Yeah. No, it perfectly makes sense. So I wanted to understand, yeah, what is the difference between like a leader? Now, let me rephrase it. What kind of separates leaders that make consistently great hires from the leaders that like struggle to get the right people in or like make terrible hires?
Clarity. They
Okay.
understand truly what they're looking for.
Hmm.
Um, I worked with this leader, great person, uh, great story, had a great sell to candidates, but did not take the time,
Mm.
was feeling rushed, and did not understand what they were looking for. They had never
Mm.
worked for, talking about matches, they had never worked for a small startup. They came from a very large organization.
Yeah.
Um, and so they made a lot of assumptions about what the company that we're working for was capable of doing, but also what they needed. And it
Hmm.
took a year to finally hire the right person because that person didn't have the time to really sit back and say, what am I really looking for?
Got you.
What will really make me successful? They were just trying to pinch and do, and budget was an issue. There was a lot of things that went into it. But a true leader that understands exactly what they want is able to articulate that to the recruiter
Mhm.
and understand what success looks like
Yeah.
and what that person needs to accomplish in the next 12 months,
Yeah.
they're going to hire more effectively and efficiently in the right person versus a person that is not having that clarity, that does not understand truly what they're looking for, and
Mhm.
the success rate for that individual is going to be less. Also, when you're interviewing a person, candidates are going to see a leader that really understands what they're looking for. That's going to come out in the recruiting process. I've had many a time where a candidate comes back to me and goes, that leader doesn't know what they're looking for. They
Hmm.
don't know what that vision. They couldn't articulate that to me, Cherney.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have that strategy up front going into the recruiting process, talent leaders need to say to that leader, you need to take a pause. You're not ready to go out and recruit in the market today until you really figure out. That's when you lean on your HRBPs and say, you need to work with this leader and really help them strategize. Or we strategize as a team to help them figure out where they need to go and what they need to do, because you're just going to be wasting time and cycles and money going out into the marketplace
Yeah.
trying to find what this person thinks they need versus what they know they need.
Exactly, and we both know the cost of a bad hire in an organization. Like, it's not just the person's salary, it's the recruitment fees again, it's the lost time, it's the potential overtime if you're having to pay somebody else to step into that role. It's the potential loss of people already in your organization because they're burning out because there's a gap that has not been filled correctly, or so there is so much cost to getting it wrong. And that single word, clarity, just sums it all up. You have to be clear about what you want. And you don't just think of the now, you need to think two, three, four paces ahead of you to understand, like, will this role shift? Will it change? Like, and that is exactly the clarity that you're speaking to. So
And
yeah,
understand the business. Like, where is the business going to be in
yeah.
a year, 2 or 3? If you
Hmm.
hire someone that is only, say, has scaled a company 1x and you're looking really for a person to scale the company 4x, you're
Mm,
hiring the wrong person right off the bat. So
yeah.
you really need to make sure you understand that strategy and the business strategy, where the business is going and what you need, and align those. So that's
Mm,
clarity is really the key, and as well as strategy.
yeah. So, like, we're talking about mistakes and what it costs to a company, but like, what is a hiring mistake that people make and they think it's small, but actually it becomes really expensive later?
I think it's when you don't hire for like-minded people. It's really that when it comes down to when you let me restart that one.
Okay.
I think it's a couple things, but 2 things that come to mind when you're hiring and you make small mistakes in the hiring process. One is when you get happy ears. And what I mean by that, you start talking to a candidate, you immediately gel, the leader gels, and then everything is out the window because, you know
Yeah.
what, I like this person, they're saying the things that I want them to say, and then you stop doing all your due diligence and all your probing. And
Yep.
then you wanna rush the hiring decision, you don't wanna follow the process, etcetera. So when I'm working with senior leaders, one I think the most critical parts of an interview process is the presentation stage.
Got
I've
you.
had seen this time and time again where a leader gets happy ears and they're really loving this person, they've come highly recommended, and you know what? We're gonna hire them. We don't need to
Yeah.
follow the process. And I'm like, "Yes, we do," because I can't tell you how many times we've gotten to the stage with a senior leader and we all love this person. We think they're going to be amazing. And then they deliver the presentation and they fall on their feet. Or something comes out in that conversation, and when a person asks a question and they say something that just doesn't maybe align with that value, and then
Yeah.
you see that red flag. It's making sure you're seeing those flags and not having the blind vision to this or the happy ears. I think the second thing is when you again, maybe you have that happy years, but you're not seeing that alignment, right? I think you really need to hire someone that's going to be successful in your company. Each company has unique characteristics. And if
Mm,
you're not looking at those characteristics, and being able to find people that maybe have more of a tougher skin because it's a culture that's more direct. It is more to the point. You know, they don't like to spend time making things all sweet and cuddly. That
yeah.
happens. You have to hire a person that can handle that type of and have that armor to be successful. Even though the person maybe that you just talked to would be amazing, but you know that they would fold because they don't have that armor.
Yeah.
So those two things are really important that you don't miss in the process is looking for those little red flags because they do add up. And when they start adding up, is that still a success?
Yeah.
Or you get so happy with the individual that you want to forget the process, and then those red flags don't come about because you didn't do all your due diligence.
I like that. The happy ears makes me giggle. But like when we think about that, I mean, you and I have both been party to when we've been told that hires are being made, but they've not gone through the process. And we have both sat there scratching our heads like, okay, let's see what comes about. And 9 times out of 10, what comes about is exactly what you've just described.
Exactly.
They're just not the right fit at all. So
Yep.
then we have to backpedal and fix fix an issue that was never an issue. It's now become an issue that's landed with us. And now we're trying to figure it out in a rush because normally when that happens, like the accountability is not taken. But what happens is the pressure is put on the business partner and the recruiter, the talent team to fix the mistake that's been made.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I think
urgently.
I mean, I've been recruiting for over, 30 years, right? And I sometimes fall in that trap myself. I'm like having a great conversation with someone, we clicked, and you know what? But I might have to remember myself, okay,
Yeah.
put your happy ears aside and make sure you're really listening for
Mm,
all the things that you need to listen to make sure that that person is the right fit for this opportunity. As much as you like them,
mhm.
but still sometimes that they're not the right fit. So it's a trap that we all fall into.
1 sec, I've got to pause. So, like, you've done, like, so many things, and I love that. Like, you have brought in so many amazing people, and you think about the money that you've made for organizations with placing the right people at the right time. Like, can you share a hire or a client partnership where you saw like a massive impact and putting the right person in the right seat, following your framework and the things that you do at Whiting?
I have many stories, which is a nice thing to say,
Mm,
but I think over the last, say, 7 or 8 years, I think one of the most things that I'm most proud of are 2 things, or 3 things, I guess. I really let me pause on that. Let me think.
So, can you share like a hire or a client partnership where you saw the impact of getting the right person into the right seat, like the framework that you've discussed that you use at Whiting?
So, the last company you and I worked with, I had many great partnerships, but I think the one that really stands out that everyone thought was gonna be impossible to do was we
Mm,
were going into another country that we had never hired in before.
mhm,
And we were gonna do all the recruiting in the States or in Canada, not in country. And
yeah,
we hired this most amazing person that had scaled companies before that could properly educate us on how to recruit in this country successfully because most of the candidates that accepted offers did not start. 50% of the candidates that accepted offers didn't start.
yeah,
100% of our candidates started. We were able to, within 6 months, double the amount of hires that we had in that region because of the process that we put in place. And that process was making sure we had clarity in what we were hiring for. We were
mm,
partnered with the hiring managers in that as a business value. We understood comp. We understood what the candidates were expecting within market. We knew how to negotiate with those people in market and influence correctly. We
yeah,
had follow-ups, we had check-ins, we had, a great ROI story to tell that was consistent both from a recruiting perspective, hiring manager perspective, HR perspective,
yeah,
and we had an amazing onboarding process, which I know we haven't really talked about, but
mhm,
because we had that right person in place as a senior leader, and then they were able to properly clarify what we were looking for, we were able to build the initial team, which was 12 senior technologists in that region within
mhm.
6 months.
Oh,
and 100% of them started. So I think that is because we were able to build that trust with that individual.
mhm,
And he is still one of my greatest people that I've ever worked with before. But after that 6 months, he was like, I can't believe we did that with you guys not here. You did
yeah.
that another time zone. Didn't it help that I'm an early riser, so I was able to be on those calls at 5 a.m. with a lot of those people, but it was because we really did our homework and partnered, and that person in turn wanted to partner with us. I
Yeah,
think that's the biggest thing is a lot of these leaders, again, think they know recruiting, and as much as they, like, wanna listen to me and understand what they wanna do, sometimes they still fight, and that friction is there and it's felt. That person and I were in sync.
mm,
And I've had many great relationships throughout my career like that, which is amazing to say, and I truly value that. Another one I can think about is product. I had a great relationship with a product leader that really taught me what that company did, and it was
mm,
so, so successful that I was able to articulate the way I could to attract those people. But again, it's that trust and
yeah.
building those relationships that allowed me to do that.
No, it makes sense. And like that is the biggest thing. Excuse me, like the biggest thing, like building trust as a business partner. It's about taking on some stuff and being able to show them that you've got it. And once they realize that you understand and that you've got it, that relationship goes from like 0 to 100 really quickly. And then
It
you
does.
can truly understand like their part in the business, what they want in the business. And I keep saying this over and over again, like HR has to have a seat at the leadership table in
Agreed.
everything that you do because they own your whole employee life cycle. Yeah. You'll have several different departments under HR, and we own your employee life cycle. So if you keep us in the dark, we can't help you plan for the future of your business or what's coming next. And
Correct.
recruitment falls under that, talent falls under that. It's called talent for a reason. You can't
And
get the best talent if they're not there understanding what's going on with the business,
I totally agree with that.
you know? So I wanted to speak to you because you don't just own whiting, you have a creative side and you have an interior design company. So I wanted to ask you about the interior design company.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wanted to, oh, sorry, I'm going to ask you two questions. I wanted
Okay.
to ask you about the interior design company, and I wanted to ask how you got into interior design. What does that give you that recruiting doesn't? Sorry, it was a two for one.
That's okay. I've always loved making things beautiful. So I like to take something that's vintage and revive that. And I started Chernee's house because I really loved being an entrepreneur, and now my next stage of my career, I've done all those things, right? So now
Hmm.
this next stage of my career, I still want to have the journey of creating and helping someone find a home from whiting, but I
Yeah,
also want to be able to make someone's home what they want, right?
yeah,
And so that's what interior design gives me, and I'm able to help a person create what they have in their head that maybe they don't know how to create in the real world, and
hmm,
put that vision in place and create a home that really feels like their home and is layered in things that they love. So,
mm,
similar to recruiting, a lot of curiosity, a
yeah,
lot of great questioning, a lot of, like, probing to get where we need to go.
yeah,
Uh, but I think what both of them are long sales cycles, so they're not as much on the closure side as maybe I want, because recruiting is a long sales cycle, but so is
mm,
interior design. It just allows me to bring out a little bit more of my personality, on the Cherney House side that maybe people don't see on the Whiting side, because it's so technical, it's so fast-paced, things of that nature, but they're
yeah,
both creative. You're both storytelling in different ways. So the key to recruiting, and I think the key to design, is storytelling what that person wants and envisions, and so that's that tie even though they're very different from a thought process or where I'm using my brain at the same time. But I wanted flexibility in this time in my life.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think success and time gives you is, and as a gift of that is flexibility. And both
Hmm.
of these opportunities of where I'm at with Whiting, which is more of the higher end placements, the higher end conversation and hiring with leadership, and
Yeah.
where I am from a design perspective is going to give me that flexibility and that ability to help people in different ways. So it's very gratifying.
I absolutely love that. I think that's amazing. I love the fact that you just said it, but home and clarity, and that they both fall across both remits, which seems so far apart. But actually, when you think about it, it's really close, and as you just explained. Chernee, thank you so much for spending time with me. I truly appreciate it. Like it's been great. Like I said, you recruited me in, and the situation I had, like COVID and thinking about moving, it was one of the smoothest and most clear transitions from a company that I've ever had. So, like, I just want to tell you that, and I know I've told you that a lot. So, what I also wanted to do, like, if people want to find you, how do they find you? I'm going to share your details in the captions, but like, just run it through so people have got your contact info.
Sure. I think the best place is just to go to the website, which is whitingconsulting.com.
Mhm.
And the contacts page is my email or text me at my cell number. I'm pretty responsive unless it's a beautiful sunny day and I'm out on the boat. So, other than that, try those two avenues. And Sim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you today and absolutely a pleasure learning from you about your wonderful abilities at HR. And I so enjoy working with you and hearing your laugh.
Thank you.
It just makes everyone happy.